It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show, only on Secular Media Network.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to The Phil Ferguson Show. This is show number 172, and I had a nice show all planned out for you. We were going to talk to Larry Decker, the executive director for the Secular Coalition of America, but that got bumped. We're going to do that next week. Two things happened this week that I felt like I just absolutely had to cover. The first one is John Oliver, and what is it, Late Night Tonight, whatever his show is called. It does these 20-minute vignettes where he rips apart different parts of business or craziness or scandals or whatever. Well, the one he did just a few days ago was on money. And apparently, Mr. Oliver or some of his team members have been listening to my show. They covered a lot of the same material that I had in my show, and I'm going to play some of the clips for you just to kind of show you and talk about them and all that stuff. And then after that, we're going to get real serious. It can be a real downer, but hopefully you enjoy it. We're going to have James Croft come on, and he is going to talk about some of the events that happened in Orlando, Florida, with the mass shooting. So we're going to do that in the second part because it's going to be, like I said, a little bit of a buzzkill. So I think it's something I wanted to talk about. So that's what I'm going to do. So anyway, let's go into the stuff with John Oliver. It's just John Oliver. I think the segment was called Money, and it talks about the financial services industry. And this first clip, I'm just going to play you a bunch of little short clips here. The first one is about the definitions of advisors, so we're going to listen to that.
But there is something you should know about financial advisors. Even their name means less than you might think. The Financial Industry Regulatory Authority warns customers to be aware that financial analyst, financial advisor, financial consultant, financial planner, investment consultant, or wealth manager are generic terms or job titles and may be used by investment professionals who may not hold any specific credential. So financial analyst is just a fancy term that doesn't actually mean anything. Sort of like brand ambassador or the John Oliver effect. Meaningless. Completely meaningless. But even many well-credentialed financial advisors are paid on commission. So if they recommend something for you, it may be because they stand to make money. In fact, sometimes they're actively incentivized not to act in your best interest. Take annuities. Now, certain types of those can be very complicated investment products that have high fees and would only be appropriate for certain types of portfolios. But some financial advisors push them hard.
And we've talked about annuities many times on the show, and we'll talk about them, I'm sure, many times in the future. Just one quick reminder, the word annuity is used many different ways. If you are talking about a tax-sheltered annuity, that is basically a 403B retirement savings plan, which is very, very similar to a 401k. In that context, annuity is fine. The second context is annuity is used when you've worked for a job for many years and they are going to offer you a pension, or you can annuitize or get an annuity and have your money invested that way, or a lump sum. Also not bad, but you do need to sit down and very carefully analyze the mathematics on that and see which one's best for you. Of course, if you're in that situation, you can contact me, Phil at polarisfinancialplanning.com, and we can go over the mathematics and help you out with that. So just let me know. Just let me know that you're a skeptic, free thinker, humanist, atheist, or just a fan of the show even, and we'll do that, and there won't be any charge to you. If you want to use me for more services in the future, that's cool too, but you don't have to. It's kind of my job to help people. So that's a little bit about annuities, and then we've got more segments here. The second one is John Oliver talks about Elizabeth Warren, which we talked about her on the show a few months ago. So I'm just starting to wonder if he's listening to my show. So here's the second clip.
Last year, Elizabeth Warren released a report on sales perks in the annuity industry ranging from free cruises to luxury watches to, and this is true, this tacky Super Bowl-style ring, which is absolutely ghastly, but I guess at least it makes it easy to spot brokers that you shouldn't work with.
So, again, talking about the prizes and the gifts, Elizabeth Warren, I think she came up with a calculation of $17 billion per year that investors lose when products, particularly annuities, are pushed on people. They are for the benefit of the companies. They're for the benefit of the salespeople. They're not for the benefit of you. Probably 99% of all people that buy an annuity should not have bought an annuity. One of the phrases in the industry, they say annuities are not bought, they're sold. No one goes and looks for an annuity to go buy. I mean, there's rare cases. I remember years ago I was giving a talk at, I think it was an Ambux or a Rotary Club or, one of these service clubs. And I said, I've never found a case where annuity is a right for somebody, but that may be simply because I don't get paid a commission. But I mentioned that even if it was right, you should never, ever, ever buy an annuity inside of an IRA, a Roth IRA, 401k, 403b, any kind of sheltered tax-deferred investment. And someone came up after my talk and said, hey, you can't just make blanket statements like that. Annuities are really good things. And I said, do you get paid a commission to sell annuities? And they said, well, I do, but that doesn't affect my opinion. And I said, well, I think that it does, but I tell you what, give me an example of where an annuity inside of an IRA is a good idea, and I will come back to this club next week and stand in front of everybody and apologize for being wrong. I make mistakes, and if I'm wrong, I'd like to know that I'm wrong. And he says, well, I can't give you confidential customer information. I said, I've not asked for any. Make up a theoretical scenario, any parameters you want to put on it, and give it to me. And if it's correct, I will come back and apologize. And he said he will. He would. He was going to send me the information. Well, of course, since you're a listener to the show, you know what happened next. Nothing. He never sent me anything. We're going to go back to now the third clip from the John Oliver Show. And this is where he talks about someone is a fiduciary. Why that word is so hard, but fiduciary. So if someone is a fiduciary, and John Oliver actually could pronounce the word correctly, like most human beings, unlike me. So take a listen.
Now, generally, it is currently legal for financial advisors to put their own interests ahead of yours, unless, and this is interesting, they are what's called a fiduciary. Because not all financial advisors are bound to act in your best interest, but fiduciaries are, which is a bit weird. It's like finding out that only some restaurant waiters are forbidden from ejaculating in your soup. Hey, why is it up to me to ask you which kind you are? I'm sending this chowder back. I'm not risking it. You take it back.
And that's the way it kind of is, a very funny way of looking at it. It is very unfortunate that you have to ask, and the industry doesn't want you to even know that you can ask. It's become a big deal with this Department of Labor ruling, but I've been talking about this for years. You need to make sure that your advisor works for you. Now, one of the things we talked about a few weeks ago is one of the big advisor firms apparently told one of their clients, one of their former clients, who is now one of my clients, that when the rule goes in place, they will become a fiduciary on the tax-sheltered accounts, which means your taxable account, which is exempt from the new ruling, will still be subject to them working in their best interest and not yours. How can you stay with somebody? How can you work with somebody that says, some of the accounts I'm going to work for you, and the other accounts I'm not going to make that commitment. I'm still going to allow myself to cheat you out of money or do something that is in my best interest and not yours. And then, of course, it leads to the situation, and this is going to happen. There will be cases that if you have money in a taxable account and could put some part or all of that money into an IRA or Roth IRA, will there be a temptation for that advisor to encourage you to not put the money in the IRA or the Roth IRA? Because as soon as you do, they now have to act in your best interest. So by definition, if someone doesn't always act in your best interest, I don't see how they can be a fiduciary at all. But that's something we're going to have to see how that happens. Just keep that in mind. If you have an advisor that tells you some of your funds, they are going to now put your interest first, that means the other accounts, they're not going to put your interest first. And matter of fact, they're not putting your interest first now. So why do you use them? You can do this on your own. You can find a fee-only fiduciary advisor. There's other ways you can do this. John Oliver, of course, goes on and talks about another one of the things I mentioned in so many shows. It's index funds. So let's listen to that.
Generally speaking, you can choose between low-fee index funds, which basically just try to match the average returns of the stock market, or for a higher fee, you can get an actively managed fund with experts who will pick and choose stocks for you, trying to beat the market. And companies that sell active funds really believe in themselves.
And sure they do. And not only do you have active funds, but you have active accounts. So something that I've seen quite a few of, people will send me their statements, and they've got 3, 4, 5, 800,000 or $1 million, and they own 40, 50, 70 stocks. And I ask them, why do you own these stocks? And they say, I don't know. So that means somebody, probably your broker, probably your advisor, is occasionally buying and selling, and maybe they're doing it on the guidance or the advice of the company as a whole, and they figure out which ones to buy and sell, which ones are good. But the track record of these large companies reviewing stocks and telling you which ones you should buy and which ones you should sell is horrifically bad. They can't do it. They're going to underperform just like if you randomly picked stocks yourself. So it doesn't work. And if you're buying and selling a large portion of your portfolio, you're going to pay a lot higher taxes. This is one of the topics I planned to do today, but we're going to push that back to next week. So next week, we're going to talk about the actual effect of the higher taxes. So if you have an advisor, dare I call them that, or a broker, or somebody that's managing your money, and you are in a handful to a large handful to dozens to maybe 50 or 70 individual stocks that they from time to time buy and sell, you are probably dramatically underperforming what you could get. And the person is tempted to. They may not necessarily be, but they're tempted to buy and sell to make themselves more money, not because it makes you more money. And that's one of the problems. And then we're going to a second segment on active funds here from John Oliver.
But the problem with active management is that even many Wall Street experts find it difficult to consistently beat the market. And there is sometimes embarrassing evidence of this, like when a group of professionals were pitted in a stock-picking challenge against a cat named Orlando.
Orlando's method, he throws a toy mouse at a grid of companies. Very scientific. Last year, Orlando's picks returned nearly 11%, while the pros had gained just 3.5%.
Oh, my God!
Now, of course, we don't know how many times people have done this where the cat or the chicken or darts at a dartboard underperformed the advisors, because that doesn't make the news. It's just a little bit of random luck. And the same thing can happen to you. If your advisor has 10 or 12 stocks for you, they could pick a few winners, and it's going to look great. But the mathematics, the data says that in the long run, it doesn't work. I have now lost track of the number of people that have told me they have made a fortune in day trading and then had to go back to work. It can work for a while. It's just like betting on horses or at the casino. And that's another thing that just drives me nuts. I run into people all the time that tell me they are scared of the stock market because of the risk, but they go to a casino. I mean, even the most loose, liberal, highest payout slot machines are, 92, 93%? Which means every time you pull the arm or press the button, you're losing 7% of your money. Well, historically, in the stock market, every year you invest, you're making 10%, assuming you're in an index fund and not an actively managed fund. And then, of course, John Oliver goes into a little bit more about this Department of Labor rule.
It doesn't actually have to be that complicated, and it might be getting simpler. Back in April, the Department of Labour issued a final rule requiring that all advisors handling retirement accounts act as fiduciaries beginning next year. And that is great, because the financial services industry fought this rule hard.
They sure did. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, and they don't want this rule to stick. And it's really sad.